That's where those two words first came together for me. Spiritual swagger was when I saw Reverend Celeste preach. She's a gem, and I'm really grateful that she's a part of our community. She teaches at Miracles Live 365 on Saturdays. But Reverend Celeste is a senior minister. She's been the senior minister of 3 different centers for spiritual living: Power of Oneness, which was one that she started, DuPage Center, East Bay Church of Religious Science in Oakland. She's been a guest speaker and facilitator here and across the country. And she has recently started dipping into digital ministry with her podcast, Mystical Magic. So if you haven't already subscribed to that, check out Mystical Magic. She's a diversity trainer, and she is the lead of our community's monthly conversation called Culture Club. She's a poet, a director, a producer. She's a Renaissance woman, basically. Getting to witness the way that the divine moves so poetically through her is always a pleasure. Her book is called Divine Workplay. You can get that on Amazon. She's been included in several anthologies and contributing writer in Agape's Inner Vision Creative Thought magazine. So super excited to have this powerhouse with us today, Reverend Celeste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maureen, for that generous introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you for that breath. Bukeka was singing, I'll light a candle in your name. When you think of candles, you think of getting light, bringing light, right? Light is so crucial for everything. There's a lot of darkness that is in the realm of effects. It's in the world. It's in the news. It's in the energy sometimes. And if we're not careful, that dark energy is in us. And so when that dark energy is in us, notice I'm not saying if, when that dark energy is in us, it's harder to see. But when it becomes collective, as it has in these United States, then we can really look for more light in a very ardent way, maybe even a desperate way, but it's certainly an intentional way. And that's why we come into community, so that we can shore each other up in the times when it feels like we're on a slippery slope. And in the last year, moving through the pandemic, last 15, 16 months, right? We've been on a slippery slope. And on a national basis, on this day, as we celebrate a certain group of Americans freeing themselves from tyranny in England, that is being celebrated because they fought off the restrictions that they felt, when they fought off a sense of being tethered to sentiments and energy that was strangling them or stifling them in their creativity, their truth. In this awareness, we have been in this country moving through our own revolution, because that first revolution wasn't quite complete. It was still encumbered in so much of the systems that have been built since that time. And so what we know is that when a candle is lit, it gives us context. And so when an emergency comes, it reveals what we cannot see in the dark. When the power goes out, we go rushing to find the candle, right? And so when we look at where we are, and knowing that light is here now, it's definitely time for us to look not only at the darkness, but in the midst of all of the racial reckonings, the insurrection and denial, the division and the devastation of climate crisis, and in the midst of so much separation in mindset, digging into our values even more, separating ourselves from each other even more, it's time for more light, right? And so for our conversation today, I want to describe this love that we're seeking, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the times that we find ourselves in, there's always been this love, this beneficence, this holy energy permeating love. And so that love I'm calling today Black Madonna. And Black Madonna is Black. Just like the first human that was ever discovered in this species called human was a Black woman, Lucy. It makes sense that she was in Africa. You know, we have a frame of reference for what that region is. You know, it's a land where the sun is intense and the tones of the people are dark. And based on the power that is within us, whether we know it or not, before we make assumptions about darkness and lightness, let's think about what we do know. What we know is that darkness appears to be separate from light. You know, when I was a little girl, I was afraid of the dark. And while it was an imaginative time for me awakening to my own creativity, I didn't realize in a nightmare that the thing that was chasing me was my salvation. And so the flight that I was given in my so-called nightmare was simply a realization of my ability to rise above the density of the earth to realize my divine magnificence. See, I would watch the news before going to bed, and it became a very scary place to be in. It became a very unsafe place to be in. To be willing to close my eyes and trust that I would be okay seemed far-fetched. And so the boogeymans that I would imagine being in the closet, and the dragons and the scary man who was waiting to pounce out upon me wasn't there, but that just was a mirroring, a reflection of my fear. Because what I've come to know is that in the depths of the darkness, I have found myself. The night that I found myself plunging into an abyss of my psyche is where I discovered divine truth. So we mustn't be afraid of the dark. You know, when they speak about the Black Madonna, and because of so much of the Italian presence of the statues and the artwork and the paintings that are in Italy, you know, they speak of via positiva and via negativa. You know, the thing about negativa is without light, it's negated. I came to understand in a meditation years ago when I was in practitioner training, which is, I don't know, maybe 17 years ago. And I realized that if there was no light, I would not be able to see the darkness. And so there is always light. There's never a time when there is no light, even if the light is you. And that's what I'm inviting us into knowing as we are being with the Black Madonna. You know, the Black Madonna is reaching out to us today. Today, in these times where we're talking about Black Lives Matter and Women's Lives Matter and gay rights matter and transgender lives matter, so that we can know that when we're challenging oppression of people of color, of gay people, trans people, lesbians, the world over, Blacks, whites, Hispanics, Asians, and indigenous people everywhere are being called to stand up to the racism, the sexism, and the homophobia that have ruled for so many centuries. And so the Black Madonna leads the way, for she is the universal mother, fully accepting of the immense and praiseworthy divinity that she brings. She's leading the way. She's the universal mother. And so in the Me Too movement that's empowered a lot of women to speak and tell the truth of their abuse in workplaces and at home, you know, and all of these movements, the Black Lives Matter movement, the LGBTQIA movement, all of these trends are signs of the times. And the Black Madonna is listening and urging us to go move towards justice, towards balance. And the Black Madonna is bringing us to a return of the divine feminine that is so needed to inspire and empower girls and women and men also. It's no mistake that President Joe Biden has put so many women into the cabinets. And somebody questioned, well, why all these women? And I said, why not? Because the truth is that we've been carrying so much of the genius for so long. And all people of all colors and backgrounds are in this dance of humanity and all of its diversity together. And so we as Black people who are descendants of Mother Africa and the African mother are descendants of the Black Madonna. And so it makes no sense that religion should fight against religion when in the midst of it all, we're connected to the sacred, to the Divine Mother, to the Black Madonna. And so of all of the cultures that the Black Madonna can be found in, from Asia to Africa, in Judeo-Christian religions to ancient goddess religions, you know, Greek, Italian, all of this, there's so many journeys that we're making, not even physical journeys, but journeys of our soul. Because even when we think about film, I know we have iPhones now, we don't use those fancy cameras where you've actually got to put the film in. But when we look at the negatives, we're noticing that we can't see the negatives unless we see them under a certain light, right? The light itself has no form, but its energy is required to shine through to see the effect. Like conversely, the moon cannot be seen where there's no darkness. And so we need both the lightness and the darkness. And so all of these many ways that the Black Madonna has shown up for people, she's shown up for people in their most darkest hours, in the middle of trauma, in the middle of abuse, in the middle of separation, in the middle of earthquakes, in the middle of all kinds of physical things happening. There is an intrinsic way that she made herself known. People have had dreams of the Black Madonna, right? And it happened to two different men one time in Rome. One was the Pope and another was a businessman. And they both dreamed of Mary requesting a church be built in her honor. And so, because both men had that dream, it was clear that it wasn't just subjective happening to one person. And then what happened was a snowfall occurred between August 4th and 5th in Italy. August in Italy, it does not snow. And so there's many different miraculous experiences that people can share with you from all parts of the world. It's definitely been in South America. It's definitely been in Africa. It's been all over Europe, just like all of her paintings and sculptures and statues are. Now, although we went through an iconoclasty kind of a revolution back in, you know, the early part of this common era, right, which we call AD, where a lot of the old relics were forcibly removed, people found places to store them inside of caves, by trees, under the ground. And that energy remained permeable, right? It remained available to the people. You know, you could hear about men dancing on hot coals in deference to the Black Madonna. You know, because the thing is, the womb is dark, but it's nourishing and nurturing energy. The womb is dark. There's no light down there, right? And it's supporting us in our beingness, in the darkness. So as we take a deep dive into this timeless wisdom, and we think about the Kabbalah, right? Where the Black Madonna is like one of the shoulders of our journey, that is supporting our crown, our divine mind. I think about how women have been diminished by society over time. In the first century, women were emancipated politically, socially, legally, but in the second century, they were suppressed. If there was nothing to be afraid of, why were these women suppressed? Because they knew the power of the divine feminine. And so if we can think in a way that is in alignment with the love of God, we can't help but think about the Black Madonna. You know, the Black Virgin has an esoteric meaning, you know. Her worship flourished during the Middle Ages. And Mary Magdalene, an aspect of the Dark Mother, is seen in different statues around the world. The Black Madonna as Mary, the mother of Jesus, has been recognized by the Pope as the mother of God. And this is so interesting to me, because what people haven't noticed when they looked at Mary at the wedding with Jesus, what they haven't noticed is that Mary was Jesus's teacher. She told him to turn the water into wine. How did he learn how to turn the water into wine except by his mother? And she knew what he could do. And while Jesus is magnificent and was able to step into the fullness of his Christhood, Divine Mother already had it. You know, in North Africa, in a hot climate with dark skin. And so all of the dogma that has been trying to suppress women in their power is because they know it's inherent in women. My God, just the fact of the miraculous act of birthing a baby in and of itself gives you ultimate supreme power, right? Even though in early Christianity, people still worship the Greek and the Roman goddesses, they were still giving worship to the Black Madonna. Even during the Holy Roman Empire, when all of these different goddesses kind of melded together, there were still these remnants in the hollows of trees of the Black Madonna. And so the dreams of all of the Madonna's loving guidance, all of the Madonna's wonderful light is actively engaging us. And she is grieving for us even now as we move through our challenges. And so, of course, she's showing up now when our neglect of climate change is melting the grid in Portland so much that their whole power system goes down. And while we're in denial of Mother Earth, Black Madonna is telling us, you know what? The earth is our nurturing energy. It is a gift of God. How dare we ignore it? And to my mind, this pandemic is the result of us denying the earth's magnificent purpose in our lives. Because remember, the Black Madonna was pre-Christian. You know, she was of the worshiping of the earth that was before they started coming up with all of these different theories, right? When they worshiped the sun and they worship the ground, right? And so there is the birthing of the Black Madonna that came from the earth, right? Adama means earth. He's of the earth. And so the very essence of who we are is based on that. Natives know that. Natives to the US know that. And so the pushing out of their areas of living where they worshiped, you know, nature is part of the movement that we've been moving away from the Black Madonna, right? And so there's wonderful roots that come from Africa in southwestern Nigeria, from Yoruba land, right? And so in the southwestern part of Nigeria, there was these daughters of the Orisha Oshun. Oshun is the spirit or goddess of love, of rivers, of waterfalls, of dance and of music. In Brazil, Oshun is connected to the Black Madonna, and she's called Our Lady of the Apparition. And so everyone gets to come into their own sense of baptism by the Black Madonna. So as I begin to close, I want to remind you that the term knocked up speaks of a woman being pregnant. And when a woman is impregnated, they say that she's knocked up. Well, I invite us all to get knocked up to a higher level of awareness. I invite us all to get knocked up to a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of love, a love that is inclusive, understanding, and expansive. I invite us to get knocked up to an understanding of who we are, that we are endowed by our Creator with the inalienable right to do so, to live life with liberty, to live life in happiness, to live life in freedom. It is our divine birthright. It is not simply our American birthright. It is the birthright of all of us who are human beings, daughters of the Black Madonna, daughters and sons of love. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Reverend Celeste. Wonderful. You made me laugh, you made me cry, you made me think, you made me rethink getting knocked up. Wonderful.